My kettle sings at 6 a.m., the way it has for 41 years, a thin silver whistle slipping through my quiet kitchen. I pour into the same blue-rimmed mug, chipped at the lip, soft as a habit, and check the African violets lined along the sill. Victor loved those flowers. When the sun hits the fuzzy leaves just right, I can still see his hands there, guiding mine, saying, "Gently, Ellie. Everything worth keeping asks to be handled gently." My name is Eleanor Hart. Most people call me Ellie. I'm 72, a widow, and a woman who once believed a house could hold a family together if you polished the banister often enough. It was a Thursday when my daughter Mara came for dinner with her husband, Chase. I made Victor's favorite, chicken and dumplings, set out linen napkins I'd embroidered before Mara's senior prom, and tucked a white lily into the center vase. I wanted the table to say what words sometimes can't. "This is still your home." Chase dropped into Victor's old armchair without asking. He turned on the TV like flicking a switch could claim a room. Mara stood in the green dress I'd bought her last spring, her face taut, voice clipped. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, eyes skimming past the violets, past me. "This house is too much for you." We found a beautiful retirement community, activities, transportation, all of it. It's time. A hiss of steam slipped from the kettle's spout, though I'd already turned off the stove. "Time for what?" I asked. "For you to be comfortable," Chase answered, all professional assurance. "And for us to have space. We're thinking of starting a family and, well, this place shouldn't sit under one person when it could serve 3. They slid papers across my table as if it were a counter at a bank. Transfer of ownership, durable power of attorney, medical proxy, words that can turn a life into a line item. "I'm not signing," I said. It came out calm, like I was choosing tea over coffee. Chase's mouth pressed into a line. "Mrs. Hart, you've had lapses. You told us you misplaced your debit card last week." "I found it in the freezer," I said, "next to the peas." "We all have our winters." Mara didn't smile. "Mom, this is for your good," she whispered, and I heard a frightened girl trying to sound like a decisive woman. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Victor's chair listening to the house breathe, the soft tick of the mantel clock, the old bones settling. At 2 a.m, I rose and wandered, touching frames and thresholds. In the study, I opened the bottom drawer of Victor's desk, and my fingers brushed metal. A tin ledger box, cold and stubborn. I'd never noticed the false back before. The key was tucked inside the spine of common stocks and uncommon profits. Of course it was. Victor had been careful forever. The lock turned with a stiff sigh. Inside, manila folders, brokerage statements older than my violets, a will dated 6 months before his stroke. My breath shortened as I read. Victor had invested, small things over decades that had grown while I was busy keeping recipes and receipts, a farm lot outside town, a stack of dividend stocks, and, my hands trembled, the deed to a brick 8-unit building on Claremont Avenue. The address snapped into focus. Mara and Chase's apartment. They hadn't been paying a landlord. They'd been paying me through the little LLC Victor set up to shield me from noise. Rent had flowed for years into an account I never touched. At the back of the box, a letter in Victor's steady engineer's print. "Ellie, you gave both of us a life. I want you safe when I'm gone. If Mara is kind, share in time. If she is not, teach. Not to punish, but to steady the ground under your feet. V." By dawn I had the deed copies laid out, the will highlighted, the rent ledgers tabbed with sticky notes like shields on a table. When the movers arrived that morning, gray shirts, polite eyes, Chase strode in behind them, authority arranged on his shoulders. Mara hovered, hopeful and tense. "Start with the living room," Chase told the crew, waving toward Victor's chair. "Not yet," I said, rising. I felt like a tree that had found the bedrock again. "Mrs. Hart?" he started. I held up the deed. "Do you recognize Claremont Properties, LLC?" Chase frowned. "Our landlord? What does—" "It's mine," I said gently. "Was Victor's first. The checks you've sent each month? They land in my account. Your rent is current through the 15th. After that, you'll have 30 days to vacate." Mara's face changed first. Confusion, then shame, then something like hope bleeding through. "Mom, what?" "I'm not leaving my home," I said, "and I'm not transferring anything to the man who brought movers to evict me from my own kitchen." Chase reached for bravado and came up with noise. "This is absurd. We'll have you declared incompetent in a day." I slid a second folder across the table. My clean cognitive assessment from last month, a letter from my physician, notarized affidavits from neighbors who see me at church, at the grocer, walking the block every evening at 7. "And if you insist," I added, "we'll let a judge decide." Silence made itself comfortable in the room. The movers stared at their shoes. Somewhere, a delivery truck downshifted on Maple. Mara swallowed. "Mom," she said softly, "I'm pregnant." A granddaughter bloomed in my mind, a lily, then a lullaby, and my resolve wavered. Victor's letter breathed in my ear, not to punish, but to steady. "Congratulations," I said. "You'll need a safe place to land." That place is not made of stolen signatures. For the first time, Mara looked at me, not at the papers. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It wasn't enough. It was a start." "Movers," I said, keeping my voice level. "No one is packing anything today." They backed out gratefully. Chase's jaw worked. "You'll regret this." "I've regretted too much already," I said. "I'm done adding to the pile." I called Ava Mendoza, an attorney who grew up 2 pews behind me and now wore her hair in a tidy bun that looked like a promise. By evening, Ava had scanned everything, color-coded it, and set a plan. "We'll seek an injunction against any transfer," she said, tapping a page. "We'll be ready if they file for guardianship." And Ellie, "Stop explaining. Start documenting." I did. Screenshots of texts where Chase reminded Mara that once the house is ours, the nursing home piece gets easy. Voicemails that began with "Love you, Mom," and ended with "Sign today, please." Dates, times, faces in ink. A week later, we were in court. The courtroom was colder than the November outside. Fluorescents hummed, a clerk's keyboard pattered like rain on tin. Mara sat to the left, hands folded over a small swell at her waist. Chase sat rigid. His lawyer, sleek, silver-tongued, arranged a stack of dramatics he called exhibits. When Judge Rowan Hale took the bench, he moved paper the way careful men do. He glanced down at the petition, guardianship for incapacity, then up at me. He stilled, like a photo catching breath. In a voice that barely crossed the rail, he said, "It's her." Clerks stopped typing. Even the bailiff shifted. "Pardon, Your Honor?" Chase's lawyer asked. The judge cleared his throat. "Proceed," he said, but his eyes didn't leave my face. Chase's counsel painted me as a stubborn relic, misplaced debit card, overwatered violets, a fall last winter, on black ice not in my mind. He said I'd been unduly influenced by a small-town lawyer. He called me dear twice. Ava objected twice, sustained twice. Then it was our turn. Ava stood with a quiet surety that made even the microphone listen. "Your Honor," she said, "this petition isn't about protection. It's about possession." She handed up my cognitive assessment. Letters from my physician, neighbor affidavits, the will, the deed, and the rent ledger. Each page a step back to firm ground. She played a voicemail from Chase. "Get her to sign the POA, Mara. If we control the house, placement is a breeze." She introduced texts where he wrote, "She owes you, she owes us." "Don't let her guilt you." Mara stared at her lap. Then Ava surprised me. "Mrs. Hart," she said, Can you tell the court who you were 30 years ago? I blinked. A secretary, I said, in family court. I sometimes stayed late to help an intern who was drowning in case files. Ava nodded. No further questions. Judge Hale took off his glasses. The courtroom thinned around the edges. It was just those eyes and time between us. Mrs. Hart, he said, softer than authority usually allows, you brought me coffee the night before my first trial. You told me paper tells a story if you let it. You saved me from quitting. I remembered then, a boy in a borrowed tie, hands shaking over a stack of broken families. Rowan. I had said his name like a promise. You'll be good at this. Chase's lawyer surged to his feet. Objection. Conflict of interest. Overruled, Judge Hale said, voice steadied by something older than the rules. There is no conflict in remembering a kindness. There is only a duty to apply the law. He flipped through Ava's exhibits, every tab a small flag. And the law is clear. He turned to Mara. Mrs. Maddox, do you believe your mother cannot manage her affairs? Mara lifted her head. Fear swam with honesty. No, Your Honor, she said, voice shaking. I don't. Then why this petition? Her hands went to her stomach, a reflex, a prayer. I listened to the wrong advisor, she whispered. Chase exploded. She's weak. She can't. Mr. Maddox, the judge said, sit down. The gavel's tap was light and devastating. Petition denied, he said. Sanctions reserved pending a fee hearing. Any attempt to coerce Ms. Hart into executing estate documents will result in a protective order. The Claremont deed stands. The court recognizes Ms. Hart's capacity. Chase sagged. His lawyer shuffled paper as if a new arrangement could change the words. On the steps outside, the November sun felt newly honest. Mara came to me slowly. I was wrong, she said. I'm sorry. The words were small. They were true. Actions, not apologies, I said, not unkindly. She nodded. Then let me begin. Beginnings in real life are not trumpets. They are dishwater and calendars and showing up when no one claps. Mara moved back to her old bedroom. No parade, no promises. She scrubbed baseboards without being asked. She took my grocery list and returned with every item, not the cheaper substitutions. She learned how much water violets want and didn't drown them with love. Chase texted once, "You'll pay for this." Ava filed for fees the same day. He texted again from a different number, "You ruined us." We blocked that one too. A month later, he violated a temporary stay-away and had a loud conversation with our front gate. The Ring camera caught it, the police wrote it down, and the judge wrote something heavier, order of protection. Distance can be a teacher the way silence is a truth. Mara found work at a small accounting firm, where ledgers are still balanced by pencil and eye. She took on pro bono clients, older women with stacks of mail and no one to read it with them. At night, we ate on the porch when it wasn't too cold, and when it was, we washed dishes shoulder to shoulder, the clink of plates a new liturgy. "Mom," she asked one evening over stew, "what will we do with the rent from Claremont?" "Live," I said, and then lift. We created a fund and gave it a name that felt like a door light left on. Front porch light. Small grants, clean legal help, one solid locksmith when a daughter discovers the front door lock was changed while she was at the pharmacy. Ava joined the board. So did Ruth from church, whose voice can split a problem like an apple and share both halves. The first woman we helped, Miss Alvarez, arrived with a grocery sack of unopened bills and left with her name back on a deed. She brought tamales to the porch the next week, all wrapped in corn and gratitude. "You gave me back my kitchen," she cried. I thought of Victor's letter, not to punish, but to steady. Steady is a holy word. In April, Isla Rowan Maddox arrived, a middle name Mara chose without asking me, and that was the miracle. She didn't have to ask. Judge Hale sent a tiny knitted cap someone in chambers made, pale yellow like a dawn you can live with. Sometimes life circles back with the smallest trumpet. When Isla turned 4, she ran barefoot in the grass, chasing a monarch across a yard that remembers every footprint we've ever laid down. I set lemonade on the porch table. The violets were showing off. Mara came out with flour on her shirt, and a laugh that sounded like an earlier version of my girl, a laugh before paperwork taught her how to sign the wrong thing. An envelope came in the mail, thick as a Bible. The third front porch lighthouse would open in the fall, equipped with a communal kitchen, a legal clinic nook, and a room full of table lamps, because no woman should have to read a document under a ceiling bulb that makes her feel small. That Sunday, Judge Hale stopped by with his wife. He stood at the edge of our little garden and smiled like a man who has seen the system fail and still believes a gavel can remember. "Mrs. Hart," he said, "the Retired Judges Association would like to honor you this winter." I thought of coffee in styrofoam cups, of interns with shaking hands, of papers that tell a story if you let them. "Honor the women who come through our doors," I said. "I'm just the porch light." That night, I sat in Victor's chair while Isla slept down the hall, and Mara clicked off the kitchen light. The house exhaled. The mantel clock kept merciful human time. Somewhere in the dark, a neighborhood dog announced the moon. I touched the edge of Victor's letter. The paper had grown soft under my fingers these months, a kind of velvet made of repeated courage. I whispered what I wish I'd said to the frightened woman in my kitchen the day the movers came. "You are not being cruel by standing still. You are being faithful to the life you built. If you are listening and you've been told to know your place, let this be your permission. Let your place be the ground under your own feet. Let your voice be steady. Let paper tell your story, and when the gavel finally remembers you, meet it with a calm that only truth can afford." I set the letter back in the box. The violets breathed in the moonlight, and for the first time in a long time, I slept without dreaming of doors closing, only of porches lit and women finding their way home.